It was a somber and unusual day. The sky appeared darker than it should have been, casting an eerie shadow over Mount Golgotha. A peculiar sense of unease hung in the air, as if the earth itself mourned the events unfolding. Among the throng of onlookers gathered to witness the crucifixion stood a Roman centurion, a battle-hardened soldier accustomed to death and suffering. As the leader of 100 soldiers, he was a man of unwavering discipline and loyalty, conditioned to view executions as routine exercises of Roman justice. Yet, on this particular day, he was about to experience something extraordinary, something that would forever change his life. To the centurion, it was supposed to be just another day of carrying out orders. His task was clear: oversee yet another execution and ensure it proceeded without interruption. Crucifixions were commonplace under Roman rule, a brutal and public display of the empire's unyielding power. It was his duty to maintain order, to enforce the will of Rome without emotion or hesitation. However, what this centurion did not yet realize was that the man hanging before him on the cross was no ordinary criminal. This man carried not only the accusations of blasphemy from the religious leaders of the day, but also the weight of the spiritual destiny of all humanity. The prophet Isaiah had foretold centuries earlier, "But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed." Isaiah 53 verse 5. Unbeknownst to the centurion, he was standing at the center of a divine plan that would transcend time and space. The Roman centurion was a man trained to prioritize duty above all else. He had witnessed countless crucifixions, each more gruesome than the last. For him, the process was a grim necessity, a means to uphold Roman order and authority. Yet, as he observed the events of that fateful day, something about this particular execution struck him as profoundly different. The man named Jesus did not act like the others condemned to die. He did not shout curses at his accusers, nor did he plead for his life. Instead, he bore his suffering with a dignity that defied human understanding. The centurion's intrigue deepened as he watched the procession through the streets of Jerusalem. Jesus, burdened by the weight of the cross, stumbled along the narrow, crowded pathways. Unlike most condemned men, who resisted their fate with every ounce of strength, Jesus displayed an unshakable calm. His behavior unsettled the centurion, who had been hardened by years of violence and bloodshed. Though his role required him to remain impartial, he could not help but notice that Jesus' demeanor was unlike anything he had ever seen. When Jesus faltered under the cross's weight, the centurion ordered Simon of Cyrene to assist him. It was not an act of compassion but a practical decision to ensure the execution continued as planned. Yet, even in this moment, the centurion found himself questioning. Who was this man? Why did he face such agony with such unwavering composure? Upon reaching Golgotha, the place of the skull, the centurion oversaw the crucifixion. He had witnessed countless men nailed to crosses, their screams echoing in the air. Yet, Jesus' response was extraordinary. Instead of cursing his tormentors, he prayed aloud, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Luke 23 verse 34. These words pierced the emotional armor of the centurion, striking a chord he did not know existed within him. Who was this man who, even in the face of unspeakable pain, could display such compassion and forgiveness? As the hours passed, the atmosphere around the cross grew darker. The sun failed, and an unnatural darkness enveloped the land. The centurion, a man of logic and discipline, found himself deeply unsettled by the phenomena. The scriptures later described this moment. "And it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour." Luke 23 verse 44. The cries of the crowd began to fade, replaced by murmurs of fear. Some whispered of divine judgment, while others stood in silent awe. The centurion, though steady at his post, could not ignore the overwhelming sense that he was witnessing something far greater than a mere execution. Then, Jesus cried out in a voice that seemed to resonate beyond the physical realm. "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Matthew 27 verse 46. The centurion was struck by the raw emotion in these words. How could a man so brutally treated still call out to God? What did this moment of divine abandonment signify? Though he could not fully comprehend its meaning, he felt its profound significance. Moments later, Jesus' voice rang out again, this time with a tone of triumph. "It is finished." John 19 verse 30. Then, with a final breath, he said, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." Luke 23 verse 46. As Jesus bowed his head and gave up his spirit, the earth itself seemed to respond. The ground shook violently, and rocks split apart. The veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, a symbol of the barrier between God and humanity being removed. Matthew 27 verse 51. In that moment, the centurion's heart was profoundly moved. He looked up at Jesus, lifeless on the cross, and uttered words that would echo through history. Truly this was the Son of God. Matthew 27 verse 54. For a man who had spent his life enforcing the power of Rome, this declaration was nothing short of transformative. He, a hardened soldier, now recognized the divine nature of the man he had helped crucify. The centurion's journey did not end at Golgotha. The events of that day marked the beginning of a profound transformation. The cross, once a symbol of death and oppression, became a beacon of love, redemption, and hope. In the days that followed, rumors of an empty tomb began to circulate. Some claimed Jesus' body had been stolen, while others boldly declared that he had risen from the dead. The centurion, though skeptical of the rumors, could not dismiss what he had witnessed. The darkness, the earthquake, the veil torn in two, and Jesus' words of forgiveness and surrender, all pointed to a truth that transcended human understanding. The resurrection of Jesus confirmed to the centurion what his heart had already begun to believe. Jesus was not merely a man but the Son of God. His life, once defined by violence and duty to the empire, now found new meaning in the message of the cross. The centurion's transformation serves as a testament to the power of faith and the enduring impact of Christ's sacrifice. The story of the centurion challenges us to reflect on our own lives. How do we view the cross? Is it merely a historical relic, or is it a transformative force that continues to shape hearts and lives? Like the centurion, we are invited to encounter Jesus and allow his sacrifice to change us. The Apostle Paul later wrote, "But God commendeth his love toward us, in that, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." Romans 5 verse 8. This message of grace and redemption remains as powerful today as it was on that dark day at Golgotha. May the story of the centurion inspire us to see the cross not just as an instrument of death, but as a living testimony of God's boundless love. Like him, may we declare with conviction, truly this was the Son of God, and let this truth guide our lives, transforming us from within. The day was overcast, the skies heavy with a darkness that felt almost unnatural, as though the very heavens were mourning. A tense air hung over Mount Golgotha, the place of the skull, where the execution of 3 men was to take place. Among the crowd gathered to witness this grim event, there stood a man unlike the others. He was not a spectator, nor was he a grieving family member. This man was a Roman centurion, a soldier of rank, hardened by countless battles and accustomed to the brutalities of his duty. As the commander of 100 soldiers, his responsibilities were clear: ensure that the crucifixion proceeded without disruption. To him, this was just another execution, another day in service to the empire, another demonstration of Rome's unrelenting authority. Yet, unbeknownst to him, this day would be unlike any he had experienced before. What the centurion could not have anticipated was that the man hanging on the central cross was no ordinary criminal. He bore accusations of blasphemy from the religious leaders, but his true burden was far greater. This man carried the weight of the world's sin, its collective guilt, and its eternal hope. The prophet Isaiah had foretold this moment centuries earlier, but he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Isaiah 53 verse 5. As the events of that day unfolded, the centurion would undergo a transformation that would redefine his understanding of faith, duty, and life itself. The Roman centurion, like all soldiers of the empire, was trained to suppress emotion, prioritize duty above all, and lead with unwavering discipline. His loyalty to the empire and its laws was unshakable. He had witnessed countless deaths, many of them gruesome, and had orchestrated numerous executions. Crucifixion, in particular, was a method he knew well. A slow, agonizing death reserved for the most despised criminals and rebels. But this Friday felt different. As he stood observing the prisoners, particularly the man called Jesus of Nazareth, something stirred within him. A sense of unease, of something extraordinary. Jesus was unlike the others. He did not curse his fate or hurl insults at his executioners. He did not beg for mercy or resist his sentence. Instead, he displayed a calm dignity that unsettled the centurion. Earlier that morning, at the Praetorium, the centurion had watched his soldiers mock Jesus. They placed a crown of thorns on his head, struck him and jeered, "Hail, King of the Jews. Matthew 27 verse 29. This mockery was not unusual. It was part of the ritual humiliation inflicted upon those condemned to die. Yet, Jesus' response was anything but typical. He endured the abuse in silence, fulfilling the prophecy. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So he openeth not his mouth. Isaiah 53 verse 7. The centurion had commanded many executions, and he knew the defiance or despair that usually marked the final moments of condemned men. But as Jesus carried his cross through the crowded streets of Jerusalem, stumbling under its weight, there was no defiance in his demeanor, only resolve. When Jesus could carry the cross no longer, the centurion ordered Simon of Cyrene to assist him, a decision born not of compassion but of practicality. Yet, even in this act, the soldier began to wonder about the man whose calmness defied all logic. Who is this man? He thought. Why does he endure with such dignity? Upon reaching Golgotha, the soldiers nailed Jesus to the cross and hoisted him between two thieves. The centurion, as always, observed every detail. He was used to the screams of the condemned, their curses, their struggles against the inevitable. But Jesus did something no prisoner had ever done in his presence. He prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Luke 23 verse 34. These words were unlike anything the centurion had ever heard. Forgiveness? For the very men who were driving nails into his flesh? For the crowd that mocked him? For the soldiers casting lots for his garments? It was a level of compassion that pierced through the hardened heart of the centurion. As the hours passed, an unnatural darkness fell over the land. The sky, already somber, became oppressively black. The centurion looked upward, unease settling deep in his chest. What is this? He wondered. Is it some divine omen? The Gospel of Luke records this moment, and it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. Luke 23 verse 44. The air grew heavy with an eerie stillness, broken only by the murmurs of the crowd. Some began to whisper of divine judgment. The centurion, though not a man prone to superstition, could not shake the feeling that he was witnessing something far greater than an execution. Then came the voice of Jesus, a cry that seemed to reverberate through the heavens. "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" Matthew 27 verse 46. The centurion's chest tightened at these words. What did they mean? How could a man, abandoned and dying, still cry out to God with such intensity? Near the end, Jesus spoke once more, this time with a voice of triumph and surrender. "It is finished," John 19 verse 30. And finally, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit," Luke 23 verse 46. With these words, Jesus bowed his head and gave up his spirit. In that moment, the earth itself seemed to convulse. The ground shook violently, and rocks split apart. The Gospel of Matthew describes the scene, and behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent. Matthew 27 verse 51. For the centurion, the earthquake was not just a physical event. It was a confirmation of what his heart was beginning to believe. As he gazed upon the lifeless body of Jesus, an overwhelming realization washed over him. With a voice trembling with conviction, he declared, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Mark 15 verse 39. This confession was no mere observation. It was a statement of faith, born from witnessing the unparalleled grace, love, and divine power displayed in the final moments of Jesus' life. For a man hardened by war and death, this was a moment of complete transformation. The story of the centurion does not end at Golgotha. Though the scriptures do not record his life beyond that day, we can imagine the profound changes that such an encounter would have wrought. A man who once saw the cross as a symbol of Roman power now understood it as the ultimate expression of divine love and sacrifice. The centurion's transformation is a powerful reminder of the universal reach of Christ's sacrifice. No heart is too hardened, no life too entrenched in darkness, for the light of the cross to pierce through. The same grace that reached the centurion reaches out to us today, inviting us to declare, as he did, "Truly, this was the Son of God." May this story inspire you to look upon the cross, not as a relic of history, but as the living testimony of God's love and redemption. And may you, like the centurion, find your life forever changed by the truth of Jesus Christ.